Hi, boys and girls. Chapter 14, Dr. Thaddeus. So I wonder what's going to happen. Like, they're going to get in trouble. And what's going to be the consequence? Hijacked horns scuttles spirit celebration. The Greenwich Telegraph local news by Martin Landsman, staff reporter. Greenwich Middle School's annual Spirit Week was a disappointment this year after a prank gone awry dropped a shipment of traditional vuvuzelas, those are the horns, into the river. Although more than half of the noisemakers were eventually recovered, there was little enthusiasm at the school for blowing them. I'm not putting my mouth over those, one student commented. You know, fish go to the bathroom in that water. District officials are not revealing the names of the kids that did the prank, saying only that they have been appropriately reprimanded and that their teacher is a veteran educator. But the Telegraph has learned that the teacher in question is Mr. Zachary Kermit, who is still remembered in his involvement in the 1992 cheating scandal that remains a serious black eye for the Greenwich schools. Oh my gosh. Christina Vargas finishes reading the article and slides it back across my desk. Surely you're not still angry at Zachary Kermit for what happened 27 years ago. Why should I be? I said. The whole town remembers the scandal. The fact that it came up in the story proves that. The principal shrugs. You know as well as I do that the real culprit was Jake. He's the only one who got his hands on the stolen exam and went into business selling it to his classmates. He may have been only 12 at the time, but that was the same wheeler dealer that he is today with the car business. All Zachary was guilty of is being fooled like everyone else. Like me, for one, and you. I grimaced. Superintendent is a powerful job, but a lonely one as well. When big decisions have to be made, there's no higher authority to appeal to. You are the law. Christina's right that in 1992, Zachary Kermit knew nothing about what the kid was up to. But when you're the kid's boss, you don't have the luxury of considering things like that. All that matters is optics. How does it look? In 1992, it looked very bad. And if the mere mention of Zachary Kermit's name reopens that old wound in the newspaper article written by the reporter who probably wasn't even born in 1992, then the optics haven't gotten any better. An elephant never forgets, and the people of Greenwich have memories that are longer still. The district wasn't exactly supportive when the cheating scandal was going on, the principal adds. You can't fault Zachary for feeling abandoned. No wonder he got burned out. And what about the last incident, I probe? That wasn't Zachary's fault either, she offers. We have given him the Unteachables. What do you expect? I expect him to control 7 kids. Is that so unreasonable? I knew he was going to turn them into future presidents or even into solid citizens, but to keep them from grand theft, is that too much to ask? I have her there. Not even the most sympathetic principal can condone the kind of stealing, disruption, and destruction of property that transpired on Monday. And look what happened when he tried to stop them, I go on, pressuring my advantage. They all ended up in the river. I just got off the phone with our insurance company. They have a few choice words to say about that, let me assure you. She sighs. I like Zachary. We started out in teaching together. He was brilliant and dedicated. What happened in 1992 destroyed his confidence. We should have stepped in to make sure he didn't blame himself. Instead, all we cared about was making sure we were covered when the newspapers got hold of the story. It ruined his career. Another difference between principals and superintendents. Principals can be nice. He ruined his own career. He might have been a good teacher once, but he isn't anymore. I agree. We gave him the most difficult kids in the district, and that made them worse. He'll be out of his hair soon enough, she offers. We both know he's planning to take early retirement. I wince. In the education business, you don't reach the level of superintendent without knowing how to do a little homework. The health and longevity in the Kermit family are appalling. Zachary Sr. celebrated his 80th birthday by going skydiving. The grandfather just turned 106. If the youngest, Mr. Kermit, has the same genes, he'll be collecting a pension from the school district for more than 50 years. The taxpayers of Greenwich shouldn't be on the hook for a bad teacher, I tell her. If he's fired for cause, he'll get no pension at all. She doesn't like that. You have no cause, not for a few lousy noisemakers and something that happened 27 years ago. Not yet, I concede, but I'll find cause. Zachary Kermit is untrustworthy and incompetent. That means he doesn't know how to do his job. I know he's your friend, but as his boss, you can really defend him? She didn't answer. A principal always knows when there's a dead wood on staff and needs to be cleared away. I don't gloat. That would be unbecoming of a superintendent. But privately, I enjoy watching her squirm as she struggles to come up with an answer to that. I wonder, she muses finally, when Zachary fell in the river. No defense of a teacher should include a sentence that ends with fell in the river. I cut her off. The students didn't fall, she persisted. They jumped in because they thought they had to rescue Zachary. Remember the students we're talking about, some of the most difficult and antisocial we've ever seen, but they're loyal to him. Why? 12 hours later, I lie in bed trying to sleep. That why is still going in my head. Chapter 15, Otto Henderson. The whole class gets suspended for the rest of Spirit Week. If that doesn't sound like a bad punishment, remember that your parents need to rearrange their work schedules so you're not left completely alone. I can't speak for others, but my folks are pretty mad. It's no big deal, I tell my father. Sci-Fi is running a Battlestar Galactica marathon this week. That should keep me busy until at least Thursday. Dad is like Zeus from Percy Jackson. No thunderbolts, but when he's in a bad mood, you definitely want to stay clear of him. If you think this is a vacation, mister, you're sadly mistaken. You're going to sit in your room and reflect on how it's wrong to steal. It wasn't stealing, I insisted. Stealing is the great train robbery. This is the Grinch. Better than the Grinch. The Grinch tried to steal Christmas, but he couldn't. We really did steal Spirit Week. You stole it from yourself, he retorts. Everyone else gets to enjoy it. We were already banned before they were suspended. Besides, Mr. Kermit's right. It's dumb to have Spirit because it's on the calendar or because people are blowing horns in your ear. He frowns. Mr. Kermit, I don't like what I'm hearing about this guy. Mr. Kermit is a good teacher, I argue. At least he could be if he ever teaches anything. Look at Yoda. He may be a puppet with bad grammar, but he also is the greatest teacher in the galaxy. In fact, I might have to switch Mr. Kermit from the Grinch to Yoda. Just like I'm going to have to switch Barnstorm from the Flash to Aquaman because he's an amazing swimmer, even with a bad knee and a foot that had been stomped on by a lane. Come to think about it, if we're all suspended, does Mr. Kermit have to go to school? There's nobody there for him to teach. Actually, I think it might be like that. But it's possible that he's suspended too? Dr. Thadeus seemed really mad at him. Nah, Ribbit's not suspended, Parker tells me when I run into him on a delivery to the farmer's market. His car's been in the parking lot all week. How would you know that, I ask. Whenever I'm near the school on business, I look around a little. Business, I echo? Farm business. I've got potatoes for Foodland, cantaloupes for the truck stop, and rutabagas for local table. Dad says they pay the best or the most because they can't bring in produce from more than 20 miles away. By the time we get back to school the next Monday, Spirit Week is over and there isn't a vuvuzela in sight. Otherwise, everything is the same except for room 117. In fact, the place looks different. When I walk in, I actually step back into the hall to check the number on the door. No, it's 117, all right. And the other SCS 8 kids are taking their seats as usual, but we're all looking around in wonder. There's a huge map of the world on the back wall, next to star charts from the northern and southern hemispheres. At the front, there are bulletin boards for math, science, English, and social studies. There's a rolling cart of laptop computers. There are books on the bookshelves. The empty supply closet isn't empty anymore. Through the open door, we can see stacks of paper, pencils, scissors, and art supplies. Another thing is different. Mr. Kermit is already here. He's at the science board pinning up large periodic tables of elements. It throws some of us because when the teacher makes his unusual entrance 10 minutes after the bell, that's our signal to start ribbiting. Sure, there are a few ribbits, but they seem random and half-hearted. Kiana speaks up. Mr. Kermit? Oh, he turns away from the board as if noting us for the first time. Good, everyone's here. Before we get started, I want to say something about last Monday down at the river. I know you were only trying to help, so let's chalk it up to temporary insanity. And, thanks. But next time, not that there will be a next time, well, please find somebody else to help. But Mr. K, Parker interjects, waving his arms to take in the transfer classroom. What gives? Mr. Kermit looks uncomfortable. Well, last week I had some spare time since all my students were absent, so I did some redecorating. Isn't he changed? Oh, he's going to teach. because the kids are invested in him. Now he wants to invest in them. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. As an easy murmur buzzes through 117, it's hard to put a finger on it, but it comes from the fact that this redecoration smells an awful like school. It isn't a big problem for me. I'm okay with school side of things, but I don't like change. And for sure, this isn't the ribbit we're used to. Where did all this come from? At that moment, the door is flung open, and Miss Fountain breezes in beaming. What do you think, everyone? Isn't it awesome? Oh, I forgot to mention, Mr. Kermit adds, Mrs. Fountain helped a lot. So we owe a lot, or a big thank you to her. Nobody utters a sound. Our teacher shuffles uncomfortably. Well, Miss Fountain, I'm sure you're in a rush to get back to your students. Miss Fountain is looking around in growing concern. But where is it? Mr. Kermit seems flustered. Well, there wasn't much space, and in resignation, he walks over to the storage closet and opens the door the rest of the way. On the inside of the chart with all our names in the columns, and on the top is written, Good Bunnies. Miss Fountain's frown flowers. It isn't going to work. It has to be hung in a place where everyone can see it. She pulls the poster down and hangs it on the front wall right behind the teacher's desk. Much better. I raise my hand. What are good bunnies? You are, she explains. You're the good bunnies. Every time you're a helpful hare, like when you did a good deed or get a good grade, you'll earn one puffy tail. And when your tail of puffy tails reaches the basket of carrots, you get a reward. I don't like carrots, Barnstorm explains. It could be a treat or maybe even a pizza party with a cake. A carrot cake, Barnstorm asks suspiciously. The carrots are just a symbol. Here, I'll get you started. From a baggie attached to the bottom of the poster, she removes 7 Velcro strip cotton balls and pins one on the first slot beside each of our names. For some reason, I feel like I've accomplished something even though the week has barely started. Aldo lets out a loud raspberry. This is stupid. What are we, 5? I'm not wasting my time collecting rabbit butts. Mr. Kermit is annoyed. All right, smart guy. You just cost yourself one, his face twists, puffy tail. He pulls off the Velcro sticker and puts it back in the bag. No fair, grumbles Aldo. Miss Fountain is just about to go back to her own class when there's a knock on the door and this guy walks in. He's an adult, but not one of the teachers, and he looks awfully familiar, although I can't place him, but I've seen him before. Mr. Kermit knows him, that's for sure. Our teacher has gone white in the ears. It's like he's staring into the great pit of cartoon from Return of the Jedi. The newcomer says, I don't know if you remember me, Mr. Kermit, and as soon as I hear his voice, I recognize him. Barnstorm beats me to the punch. Dude, you're Jake Terranova. Oh, that's the kid that did the stealing the test. Chapter 16. Jake Terranova. Everyone knows Jumpin' Jake Terranova. Jake Terranova, who jumped through hoops to get you a great deal on a new or used vehicle. The billboards are all over town. Although to me, Terranova motors look more like Aeromativent rotors. Anyway, there's no mistaking his face. This guy's famous. What's he doing in room 116? Mr. Kermit has an expression on his face as he smells something really bad. It's the way he looks when the Vavulas were blaring. And since the Vavulas are gone, I can only mean one thing. He hates this guy's guts. Miss Fountain steps forward. I really should explain, Kermit. I ran into Jake, that is Mr. Terranova, at my parents' country club. I wanted to see if he remembered me. He sold me my Prius last year. Mr. Terranova smiles with all 32 teeth. Great car. Are you in the market for a new vehicle, Mr. Kermit? Emma loves hers. It makes me feel good to know I'm helping the environment every time I drive, Miss Fountain says with a meaningful look over her shoulder at Ribbit. Our teacher's eyes go narrow as they barely slits. Anyway, Miss Fountain goes on, we got talking and your name came up, Mr. Kermit. I told him about the story in the Telegraph. The car dealer cuts her off. This should come from me. He turns to Mr. Kermit. I read the article about the Vavulas, and they mentioned something from the past, something I was involved in. Our teacher has his teeth clenched, and his lips are practically disappeared. Mr. Terrible used to be one of my students, he explains. His speech chips some years back. That's not enough. They should hear the whole truth. He addresses us. You might have heard about a cheating scandal. Well, Mr. Kermit had nothing to do with it. It was me. I can't believe the newspaper dredged up that old story. Don't worry about it, I assured him. None of us read newspapers. I do, Miato puts in. Middle Earth Weekly. Of course, it's more finick than news. The car dealer gives him a strange look. The point is that I don't want you kids to think that Mr. Kermit did anything wrong. It was my fault. I got caught and I got suspended for it. No kidding, Aldo pipes up. We just got back from being suspended, but I didn't think it would happen to a big shot rich dude. Barnstorm snorts a laugh. He wasn't a big shot when he got suspended, dummy. He was a kid like us. Aldo and Barnstorm wheel around in their seats, turning belligerent expressions to each other, but Mr. Terranova quickly steps between them. Guys, I was in middle school once too. If you two want to throw your hands up, there's nothing I can do to stop it. But not here and not now. Aldo and Barnstorm back down. The car dealer faces Mr. Kermit again. So I came here to apologize, which I should have done years ago. And if there's anything I can do to help out, with the class, all you have to do is say the word. Thanks for your generous offer, the teacher says stiffly, but that won't be necessary. Of course we want your help, Mrs. Fountain exclaimed, and it's pretty obvious that this was her plan all along. Ooh, what is she doing? Mr. Kermit's sour expression gets worse. I'm sure Mr. Terranova would appreciate it if you and I went to his lot and tried to sell cars. And he would just be unsuccessful trying to teach our students. Be reasonable, she pleads. He's built a business. He could give a math unit on earning versus expenses or how to get a loan. He could let us tour his repair shop and maybe teach us about basic auto mechanics. He could let me take out a Dodge Viper for a test drive, I add. I have a license. Mr. Terranova doesn't answer. He's beaming at Miss Fountain, and at the moment he looks exactly like the picture on the billboards without the flaming hoops, obviously. It's a date, he says, and Miss Fountain's cheeks get all red, even though it isn't really hot in the classroom. Well, maybe, Mr. Kermit concedes, if it's curriculum related. We don't have a curriculum, one points out. We just get worksheets while you do crossword puzzle. That cost him a puffy tail. All right, I'm there. I'm done right now. So he's invested now in teaching. So it's going to turn around. And maybe this adult coming back and apologizing for what he did as a kid is going to help him change even more. And I'm guessing maybe there's going to be so much change that he's not going to do early retirement. He's really going to make a difference in these kids' lives and turn them around. They're already turned around. They're talking to each other and interacting and working together as a group. It's a steal, but still working together as a group. All right, next chapter, 17, Mr. Kermit. I'll see you later, friends. Bye.